Welcome back once again, Truth Seekers. We are the Straight Shooters. This is the show where we talk about our favorite music, our favorite movies, and don't hold back on anything because, well, that's what being a straight shooter is all about. My name is Todd Braley.
And I'm Itai Guberman.
And today we are going to talk about that absolute most amazing 80s movie, The Breakfast Club, as you can see back here. Woo, don't you? So we're going to talk about it. We're going to kind of review it, but it's we were just talking before we started. It's pretty amazing on how many people, younger people haven't seen this movie yet, and so we're going to talk about it. There's probably going to be some spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, I suggest go watch it. Just get up right now, get up, turn us off.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And go watch the movie and then come back because we'll talk about it.
We'll be here when you get back.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. We will be here when you get back. So
just pause us, come back.
Pause. Okay. Ready? We're paused.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those must-see films. If you haven't seen it, you kind of have to see it if you have any interest in cinematic history or whatever. I mean, it's not that far back. This is 80s, but
right.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those quintessential sort of high school films. Needs to be seen, and it is as great as advertised, really.
Absolutely. As I saw this movie in the theater. Shows my age.
Same.
And
Same, yeah.
But
it's a sad state of affairs.
Yeah. I just remember walking out of it as a teenager, and I just remember walking out of there. It's hard to watch something that is so relatable, especially if you're on the side of, being bullied. There's a lot of stuff in that film about being bullied, and you don't even have to be, a geek or a basket case or whatever to be taunted and to be bullied. You can be the jock, and what people don't realize is jocks get bullied too. They don't just do the bullying, and I don't know,
bullied by other jocks.
Exactly. So or bullied by their parents, which is kind of something that takes place in this film, along with Emilio Estevez's character as an athlete, and having that former athlete dad that jumps on his case because he's not putting enough effort, and he's not doing what I did when I was in school, but then you also get those parents of athletes that maybe they're living vicariously through their kid because they never got to do it for whatever reason. So I just remember I was teared up pretty good at the end of the movie. It was not a sad cry, but it was kind of, at the end of the film, it's more of a triumphant, fuck yeah, you kind of feel like you want to take on the world after you've seen this film. And so I don't know, that was my feeling when I walked out of it.
Well, they do end it on that note, don't they?
Yeah.
That freeze frame at the end.
Yeah.
By the character that was sort of most rebellious.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about that movie, though. You talk about tearing up, and you're talking about the time you watched it, in the 80s at the cinema.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And before we started recording, we were talking about how sort of timeless the film is. It hasn't actually aged a bit, not at all.
Nope.
Still as fresh and probably in some ways, even current
More poignant than it was
and
in the
yeah,
80s.
and relatable.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
There is something that changes though, but it's us, not the film.
Right.
And your reaction to it in the 80s might have been similar to how I reacted to it when I first watched it. But I think every few years when I watch the film, my response to it changes. Today it's probably more nostalgic than it was. So, if I get, say, teary-eyed or anything, it's more a nostalgia type of thing, rather than wanting to take on the world. Today I watch it, I don't want to take on the world. I want to make a film as good as this one,
Well,
even though it's not my filmmaking style at all, but
right.
still it is so good, so yeah.
That was, you talk about, you watch it and maybe tear up from nostalgia. I still watch it today, and it's I have probably seen that movie almost as many times as I've seen Jaws. I won't give you those numbers right now, but they're pretty high. But then also, I mean, I was supposed to this year. I was supposed to do a play version of The Breakfast Club. I had the whole cast and everything set up, and due to unfortunate circumstances, we had to shut it down. But it, for me, isn't nostalgia. It still hits me as, I watched that movie, and I'm just like, if I'm having a bad day and I happen to put that in, I just, at that point, I'm like, okay, fuck whatever I was feeling 2 hours ago, pull your head out of your ass and let's go do what we got to do. Because I kind of always looked at it, as I got older, I looked at it as, Vernon, Principal Vernon or Vice Principal Vernon was the man, and the rest of us were the little guys below. So, and not in a school sort of way, but it's like the button I got on, damn the man, save the empire, and not that I'm against capitalism or anything like that, but it's more about the people that weigh you down, to try to keep you down because of what their perception of you is. And that, when you get older and you do, and because what Itai and I do as indie filmmakers is criticized more heavily than most things, or most other movie people, because our standards are considered low, and so we have to fight and kick and scream even harder to do what we do. And the movie for me is kind of that, being that criminal, or being that basket case, or the brain, or the princess, that makes me want to, that Vice Principal Vernon is the guy that's telling us we can't do it because you're indie filmmakers and you'll never make anything of yourself being an indie filmmaker. And that's where I just kind of am like this. And I just keep making movies. So that, for me, that's an inspiration on that level, And I guess when I wanted to do this play, I apologize for talking so much, but when I wanted to do this play, it was more about showing the inspiration, and I felt like I could do something with it to bring it more into, even though it's still a timeless movie. I thought it would be fun to bring stuff into, the 2022s, with, bringing cell phones into it, and talking about update it with Starbucks, and all a handful of different things, but without losing the flavor of it. And according to a handful of people that had read the script, they were like, wow, did pretty good with this, and even had the gentleman that played Carl in the movie. He was actually pretty excited to hear what we were going to do with it. My friend Johnny Rock interviewed him on his podcast, and he was like, "Oh wow, I want to, let me know when it's going to happen." It was, so I was kind of sad when we had to shut everything down, but yeah, that's for me. That's a lot of what that movie does for me. Okay, I'll be quiet now. Go ahead, Itai.
It just got me thinking about Carl, actually, the character. He has a small part, I guess, but a very important one.
Yeah.
And also about Vernon. That's also something that I was trying to touch on before, that my view of the film and the characters has changed over time. Because initially I remember Vernon was a dick,
Yeah.
He kind of hated him, watching this as a kid.
Yeah.
Watching it today, he's a little bit more relatable. He's still a
as
dick,
an adult,
but
yeah. I mean, he's still an asshole, but as an adult,
he's a dick, but you can understand why. He's kind of beaten down by the profession and lost his his zest for the whole thing about educating kids and making men and women out of them, and you can tell kind of lost his faith and turned into this dick, where now it's like it's an us against them kind of thing,
right?
Even
right.
for the teachers, and Carl, he's that sort of middle, he's the janitor, but he's got some kind of wisdom, because he's closer still to being a student. He remembers what it was like to do these things and to butt heads with maybe Vernon or maybe people like him.
Well, it's like Carl says to him towards the end of the movie when they're sitting there drinking beers. He says, "These kids turned on me." He's like, "Bullshit, man." He says, "They haven't changed. You have."
Yeah.
So it's,
exactly.
The high school students always stay the same. Or was it Matthew McConaughey says in Dazed and Confused, "The older I get, they say the same age." So
yeah.
all right.
Which is a different thing altogether.
But I mean,
but Carl, there was for people who might not know the film or may not have noticed, there's a bit in the beginning where you see pictures of people on the walls, and he's one of the pictures. So he went to that school where maybe being a janitor wasn't on the cards for him,
right?
But he still ended up being a janitor, which to people looking at it from the outside is like a downer, whichever way you want to look at it. Right. But for him, it's not. It's like, I do what I got to do. I have a steady job. It pays the bills, and I'm still enjoying what I'm doing in a way. He enjoys observing, the kids. He says that to them. I go through your garbage. I know you better than anyone else.
Go through your lockers. I go through your notebooks.
Yeah.
And
he's a very, very cool character.
Now I have I have many versions of The Breakfast Club, just like I have many versions of Jaws. But the Criterion Collection put out a version of, or not a version, but they put out their well, yeah, I guess you can call it a version of The Breakfast Club. And in there, they had gotten a hold of the original outtakes VHS that John Hughes, I guess, had in a box at his house that his wife, before she passed away, got to the people from the Criterion Collection. And it literally has an hour's worth of outtakes, and it's worth it. It's worth the $33 to get just for that hour of outtakes, because what they cut out of the movie, there's a lot of it you understand why it was cut out, but Carl, actually, you got to find out why Carl was a janitor. And I'm not going to give it away completely, or do you want me to? Do you want me to give it
Oh,
away?
go ahead. We said this is
Okay.
a spoiler-filled
Okay.
show,
Spoiler
so yeah.
alert. Pause this.
I actually haven't seen that. The Criterion Collection version, so
Yeah,
it's a spoiler for me too. But
yeah,
it's
it's
okay.
crazy. Because Carl was basically because he wound up being kind of a wild child, thinking he could do whatever he wanted to, and he
You
talks
can
about
tell it's kind
getting.
of a mirror to the Judd Nelson character.
Yeah, yeah. He kind of what? Well, he was, but he wasn't. He was more of a straight and narrow guy that got off on the wrong, went down the wrong path, and got a girl pregnant, and so his life did not go exactly the way it wanted to. And the other thing that was cool about that, because he talks about when John Milner, sorry, that was American Graffiti. I went back too far. When Judd Nelson's character, he says, "How does one become a janitor?" And when he says, "Oh, what you think? I'm just some kind of like peon," and and then he goes into what he did in his life that brought him to become a janitor. But then after that, what's cool is he proceeds to tell each one of the kids what's going to happen to them in 10 years. So he kind of does a little prediction, that Judd Nelson's character winds up ODing in a hotel room or a motel room, and he dies there, and the dogs that he has eats him. And then he points at Brian and he says, "And you wind up, you're got a Fortune 500 and you've made all this money and stuff. And then at 38 years old, wham, you have a heart attack. Boom, you're dead at 38 years old." And so he just kind of runs down and tells each one of these kids where they're going to be in their lives within 10 to 15 years. And I understand why they cut it. And I had my buddy Johnny ask John Kapelos, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, how he felt about having that part cut out. And he said, "I was devastated." He said he found out before the movie was released by the editor, the woman that cut it together, Dee Dee, I forget her last name. She cut all of Scorsese's movies as well, and so she told him, she goes, "Just FYI, your monologue ended up on the cutting room floor." So she just so yeah, it was kind of cool to see that. Again, as a filmmaker, you can look at it and go, yeah, I can understand why they cut that out. But there is just an hour's worth of scenes that were cut out, and again, as a filmmaker, you look at it and you go, okay, I get why they cut it out. And in fact, some of it I was surprised to see. There's a scene with Molly Ringwald and Ali Sheedy in the bathroom when they get up. Who has to go to the lavatory? And everybody raises their hand, and they're in the bathroom, and there's this whole conversation that goes on between the two of them. But it was weird. It was like the acting in it was so bad that I was really shocked, because the acting in that movie is really, kind of primo. Yeah, top notch. But that bathroom scene, I don't know if somebody didn't feel good or they had gas or what, but the acting in it was just not great, not very good at all. So
you think that's why it was cut, or do you think it was cut because of the content?
I think probably a little of both, I would guess. Because it shows in that scene in the bathroom, it shows Molly Ringwald having compassion already for her, yet we're only 30 minutes into the movie, where later on, when they have their conversation about, being a compulsive liar or a sex addict or whatever, it all of a sudden now she's back to being mad at her again. Whereas you obviously through the ride through the movie, you think that Molly Ringwald, or you get the impression that she thinks that she's above everybody anyway. And so it was kind of one of those things that I just think the content of it was probably the reason it got cut. The bad acting was probably secondary, just because we know how, having done a lot of homework on John Hughes in the past, he was, if he didn't like it when he watched it, he'd either do it again or he just cut it out of the movie and figure out a way to make sure there wasn't a plot hole in there.
It's a strange one. Like in some ways, what you're talking about is almost like a lesson in editing, a crash course, because a lot of people think they have to include something in a movie just because they shot it. It's okay, we already shot it, that scene, the acting was so good. But it doesn't, it actually makes the movie worse. John Kapelos, if he would have had that in this movie, it would have brought it down a little bit, because he's sort of wise man, sage type of character is a suggestive kind of thing in this movie. If they put that in, it kind of kills that off.
Exactly.
It's unnecessary. Yeah.
It actually, what I saw that it did by watching that, it literally puts him in the same league as Vernon, because he's not, well, if you see it, I'll see if there's a way I can get that to you, but he goes from being kind of a pseudo sympathetic to the kids to just literally turning into Vernon. I mean, he's really not very nice, and he's literally, he turns into a complete dick, just like Vernon. And I was like, okay, I see why they cut it. I had actually
in the movie, he's almost ultra sympathetic to the kids. Because again, he remembers what it's like to be there.
Exactly.
He could have kind of blackmailed Vernon and used whatever he had on him, to make his own life easier, and instead he chose to help the kids with that.
Exactly.
And that's what kind of made the character. And I think if they would have tried to put more onto that character, it would have kind of ruined it. Same thing you're saying,
he would have been in the same league as Vernon then, because he would have been very, he was not
Vernon
very
ends
nice.
Vernon ends up not being such a bad guy, especially for, like I said, for people probably our age or older maybe, because again, you do have some understanding, for a character who's kind of burnt out by the profession. And kids don't make it any easier on teachers and principals and vice principals either. So it's, being a kid, I remember, we didn't see them as people. We just did not see them as people. They were not human to us. Until you mature somewhere along the lines, maybe like, when you're around about 15, 16, you start to kind of see them more along a similar level to you, or that chasms kind of, you start to build some kind of bridges. You talk to teachers like they're people, and I think the first thing that hits you at that age is guilt. I was such an asshole to those teachers. Why was I doing that? But
exactly.
Some of them, some of them know how to deal with it and come to expect it, and some of them get disillusioned by it, like Vernon. But he was still sort of salvageable, and you could. I think that's why a lot of people wanted to see The Breakfast Club 2. To see a sequel where what happened to Vernon, what happened to these kids.
John.
But I don't know. Maybe the mystery is best. I know they wanted to make one.
John Hughes was actually planning to make The Breakfast Club a trilogy, but literally go back and revisit it every 10 years. That was his original plan for that. Again, John Kapelos talked about that on Johnny Rock's show.
It's funny because he would have had all the actors; they're all still around.
Yeah. Well, the biggest problem that he had was because Judd Nelson was such a pain in the ass, working, because he went the method route and stayed in character the whole time, and wasn't just in character as who he was playing, but everything that he did. I mean, you weren't even allowed to call him by his real name or he'd flip out on you. So, and John Hughes just was like, when they were done shooting the movie, Hughes was like, I don't give a shit if I ever see him again. Because he was such a pain in the ass on the movie that he didn't want to work with him again. That was actually one of the first reasons why we didn't get it. And then the other reasons, being, minus the fact that he passed away, but that was still quite a few years later. Molly Ringwald didn't want anything to do with it. And Emilio Estevez was like, nope, not going to do it. So,
just goes to show there was a lot of friction between, the actors.
Yeah.
Makes me wonder why, but I know these things happen, but
and Molly Ringwald, kind of... I mean, she wanted to do more grown up stuff. Cause I mean, she did
Oh, no, that's fair enough.
3 John Hughes movies as a teenager. And, when you get to a point where you want to start doing roles that are more grown up, which unfortunately, because that's what killed her career, a movie called Fresh Horses with her and Andrew McCarthy. It's horrible, absolutely horrible. But then Judd Nelson and Ali Sheedy did a movie called Blue Shield or something like that, Blue Sky. It was a cop movie that was really bad.
Yeah, it rings
too.
a bell.
But so yeah, but then it was like after the Breakfast Club, then they dove in and did Ali Sheedy and Judd Nelson and Emilio Estevez were in St. Elmo's Fire. So
God, that's a good movie.
Yeah, that's an awesome movie too. And if you kind of think about it, it was funny because I watched it. My younger daughter Brienne had not seen it before. It was probably like 3 years ago, so she was 17, 18 years old. And we watched St. Elmo's Fire, and she turned to me with Emilio Estevez's character kind of creepy stalking Ali
Demi Moore.
No, it wasn't Demi Moore. The doctor.
Trying to think who else was in it.
God, what's funny is you look at St.
Elmo's
Fire.
The shelf here.
Yeah, you look at that and you just realize how many people were in that movie.
With Rob Lowe and Mary Winningham but yeah, Rob Lowe was the big star, I guess, and most likable character.
Yeah. Let me see, Mary Winningham, not just her, the woman that played the doctor that he was stalking. I always forget.
I'm trying to remember.
I always forget her damn name. Well, she was only a secondary character in it, so she wasn't really. She's actually Andy McDowell. That's what it was.
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah, Andy McDowell was. You just kind of look and you went, wow, Emilio Estevez is really. She was like, he's like creepy stalking, dude. He's like, he was just, and I started looking at him like, yeah, man, he's really kind of creepy stalking, man, when he follows her. I mean, it goes past obsession when you get in a car and you drive 100 miles into the snow.
He's definitely lost his way, that character.
Yeah. So anyway, okay, so coming back to the Breakfast Club,
But just before you do, talking about St. Elmo's Fire, if you tinkered with it just a little bit, it could have easily been a sequel to The Breakfast Club.
You know what? You're right. It could have,
because it's the same sort of group of friends at a slightly later age.
Yeah.
This was sort of towards the end of high school. The other one is like after college, after. Yeah. So yeah, there's something there, that could have easily been explored, but never was.
Yeah. Joel Schumacher did a hell of a job on that movie. That was
what a soundtrack. I mean,
yeah.
Actually, sticking to the one we're watching, the one we're talking about.
Yes.
Also, fantastic
the Breakfast
soundtrack.
Club. Yeah, the soundtrack for that is just off the chain. I mean, I was actually having a musician friend of my son's redo the music and make it more. He asked me, he says, well, if I'm going to remake this, how do you want it? I said, well, Happy Marilyn Manson is what I was thinking.
What would that be?
Well, I mean, something that wasn't so, Marilyn Manson's music was dark. You could listen to it without lyrics and go, wow, this shit is dark. But I wanted something that would sound like Marilyn Manson, but not dark Marilyn Manson. So a little grungy, the little grungy guitar and stuff. And he actually sent me a version,
a bit more edgy.
Edgy. There you go. And he sent me his kind of remake on Don't You Forget About Me, and it was actually I'm so pissed we couldn't do this play, because this really would have been something fun, because we had it completely interactive with the audience. The audience was going to feel, I mean, even John Hughes did that with the movie. You felt like you were in detention with those kids,
Would you have gone slightly more maybe a bit of a sort of a musical kind of route?
You know what? Somebody did it as a musical and it sucked. It was horrible. I did not,
because music has a lot of weight in the actual film,
right?
And translating that to a play, that still has.
I had that all worked out. Where we're going to use music, we were going to involve the audience. We're going to have the audience actually help sing the songs where it mattered. So it was going to be a lot of audience participation. In fact, I even took Vernon's opening monologue and switched it so we opened the play with that, and it worked. It really.
The film opens with the essay, with a bit of the essay.
Yeah, we had that too. But the very beginning of the play, the way we were going to do it was going to have Vernon addressing the audience. So he was going to walk out to the audience and do his whole, well, here we are, and he was literally going to be walking around, because I had a full round theater that we were going to use. It was a black box theater. And he was going to walk up and down the aisles as he's talking and stop and, address somebody individually. So yeah, it was going to be pretty cool. So, but we're not here to talk about the play that was not, but
the play that never was. Yeah.
That almost was. Well, we had one read through.
Yeah.
We had one read through and went through the facility that the venue that we were going to shoot, that we're going to do it. But
maybe you'll revisit it at some stage.
Yeah, we'll see.
Like you said,
we'll see.
Never say never.
No, you're right. Like I've tried to leave filmmaking many times, and
good
just
luck
like
with
Al
that.
Pacino says in Godfather Part 3, just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. So anyway, so getting back to the Breakfast Club.
I just wanted to
go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a question about the Breakfast Club.
Sure.
We were talking about soundtrack. Now, okay, Simple Minds, Don't You Forget About Me,
right?
Aside, I mean, that's everybody's favorite song, the one that they relate to this film.
Obviously.
But aside from that song, what's your favorite song on this soundtrack?
that's really
It's an interesting
hard.
one. There's a lot of Wang
Um,
Chang, a lot of uh,
I actually think the Wang Chung song is probably Fire in the Twilight is probably my favorite. Um,
Interesting.
that, and then I also am a big fan of the We Are Not Alone.
That's my
I just
favorite.
kind of feel like just because of the lyrics and
Yeah,
that
Carla DeVito.
carries a
Yeah,
lot of weight.
yeah. I don't remember that song being any type of like single or radio kind of play
No, it wasn't.
hit at the time, but geez, it should have been. It's
It
so like Pet Benatar-ish, and it should
very
have done well.
yeah
Yeah.
yeah
But Carla DeVito is not really a name. I don't know what happened with her, but such a good song,
yeah
and it's such a great fit in
yep.
that scene. Wow. One of my
Well,
favorite scenes in the movie.
and then they had from the last few songs on the soundtrack are well, not the last few. It kind of goes back and forth, but then they have some of the instrumentals, like the Dream Montage.
Yeah.
I love that. It's much different on the CD than it is on the in the film. So
Mm-hmm.
but it's all there. I can listen to that sound. There's only 10 songs on it. None of them, I think the longest one is Didn't I Tell You by Joyce Kennedy. And
Mm-hmm.
I it's when it's over, I just let it go. Start over, do it again. I don't care.
Yep.
I don't know if you know this though. Don't You Forget About Me. Did you know who was actually originally asked to perform that song for the movie?
I vaguely remember something, but I can't. No.
Billy Idol.
Hmm.
And he
That
turned it
makes
down.
sense.
And he said
That
no.
also makes sense. That also
So,
makes sense.
but he went
I
back.
think it
He
wouldn't have
did
been
it.
as good.
I actually he did what he had an album that he put out that had him doing that song.
Covering
It
it.
was probably about 10 years ago. Yeah, and it would have been different, but it would have been the same. It kind of it.
I'm not saying his version like wouldn't have been good. It just wouldn't have been as good for the film I'm talking about, and probably
Yeah.
as a song as well. I mean, Simple Minds, geez, they were a good
Well,
band.
but Simple Minds wasn't a thing yet at that point. They that because of that song that blew them up. Billy Idol was already popular at that point. He was pretty much at the height of his career. So
Maybe not in the US, but Simple Minds were a thing.
not
I
in the
remember
US.
that.
Not in the US. I don't
Yeah.
even remember hearing about Simple Minds until Don't You Forget About Me. Then all of a sudden they had more songs and songs that they did before that, and then obviously songs that they did after that. And but that's the thing about, that was something that when I was younger, there were songs that I always really, really liked and never got popular here. But then you'd find out, on the UK Billboard or the Australia, even down in Australia, and other parts
Well,
of
this
Europe, songs
for me, this
that
was
were
when I was back in
popular.
Israel. I was younger, but yeah,
Yeah,
I
well,
heard it in Israel, and I already knew of Simple Minds then.
and
When the
that's
film came out.
yeah, and that's the difference between other parts of the world and the
Yeah.
US. It always seems like the US was always late to the party, and but then wanted to take credit for everything. So, but yeah, there is nothing on this album. I never skip anything, especially you've got Heart to Hold with Jesse Johnson. Jesse Johnson was the guitar player for the time, and went off and did his own solo album stuff, which was probably the two albums. He did 3 albums, and those 2 albums were just amazing. I suggest you go out and hunt those down. Well, maybe, maybe that's going to be my next album pick is going to be the Jesse Johnson, his first album there. So maybe we'll talk about that. But yeah, there was nothing on there that I didn't like. And I'm with you. There were songs that I wish would have gotten on the radio that never did. But I just kind of think that Simple Minds, really, the Don't You Forget About Me was so huge. It's like, can you top that? Nope.
It also became synonymous with that, with that freeze frame, with that final scene of the film.
Yep, absolutely.
I actually think that, I don't know if I remember correctly, I'll look it up later, but I think that Don't You Forget About Me was a hit song before it was on the soundtrack, just not in the US. And when the film was released, I think it kind of revived the song again. It became a worldwide hit rather than just in Europe. But yeah, there's something about it. Whenever I hear the song, I see the arm going up in the air, the fist, and that freeze frame, on the football field, right next to the goalpost. You see it.
I shot my youngest daughter Brienne's senior pictures, and she told me, she goes, "Dad, I got to do a Breakfast Club, picture." And so it wasn't on a football field, but we were at this big park that we were shooting your senior photos in, and she does it walking away, though. She didn't want to do it walking towards the camera. She wanted to do it walking away. And then when we put them together, and I gave
that's
them
more that's more the Undertaker.
The Undertaker.
Are you at all into the wrestling?
Yeah.
WWE.
Yep.
He's got the thing with the back to the audience.
Boom, yeah. So we did that, and then when I gave her the picture, I had it on the bottom of it said "Sincerely Yours, The Breakfast Club." So yeah, that was pretty cool. But there was, I don't know, what are your favorite scenes, or what is your favorite scene from that movie?
That's a really, really tough one, I have to say, because there's like so much of it that is a favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's not the whole scene, it's just part of a scene. And it's funny because I watched it again, like I said, a couple of weeks ago for this episode, for this recording. And the part where they all start kind of whistling together, I remembered it being longer.
The bridge over the River Kwai.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that scene being longer. I'm like, oh wow, it was always this short. It just goes to show I haven't seen it in a while, and the things that kind of stick in your head, Do you know something? It's between two. Yeah.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'll let you finish, and then I'll.
No, I was going to say that as far as a favorite, it's a tough one, but that whole song bit, which is kind of almost like it's a sort of a montage, where they show all of them doing different things and dancing and all the rest of it.
Playing
that is
guitar,
a huge favorite. Yeah, and Emilio Estevez, doing all these flips and jumping around and.
You're talking about towards the end or at the beginning?
Yeah. No, that was like up on the thing. He was jumping around, and the other ones were all dancing separately, and then they show you some of them dancing together, amazingly choreographed all of a sudden. Okay, but just this like kids letting loose, having fun. It kind of, it's a bit of a favorite, but also, of course, the scene where they all sit together and kind of pour their hearts out to each other.
Yeah,
it was a tough one. Not a tough one to watch, but it was more heavy, and it kind of brought back.
It's the heaviest
certain
part
things
of the
from
movie.
High school. Yeah,
it's the heaviest thing, and that's the thing. That's the beauty of this movie. It's just we talked when we started about how timeless it is. Nothing has changed in high school, except for these.
The names, the nicknames, these kind of things may have changed, but it's still the same people. It's the same types.
Yep.
All of that hasn't changed at all.
Yeah. Yeah, my favorite scene is actually the beginning with when Vernon leaves after he's come in and told them all that they're going to write their essays and what they're going to do, and he walks out, um and then Judd Nelson starts talking. so are you two like boyfriend girlfriend, steady dates, lovers? I mean, when he digs in and starts just pushing everybody's buttons right away, it's funny because it's almost like he knows exactly what he is doing. Or not that he doesn't know what he's doing, but it's like he knows exactly what buttons to push, how hard to push them, and how long to hold them down. When he gets to Molly Ringwald and stands in front of her, have you ever kissed a boy on the mouth? Are you a virgin? That was how he starts it off. I'll bet you $1 million that you are. And he just and
his entertainment. Yeah.
And it's funny what I realized when I was putting that play together. His character has more lines in that movie than anybody else. He Absolutely. Literally is carrying that whole movie. It's almost like they have he's the narrator. Even though we hear Anthony Michael Hall's voice at the beginning and at the end, his character, he carries them. John Bender is kind of the narrator of the movie without narrating the movie. So
well, he's in a lot of ways he's kind of the hero of the thing. Because he goes through maybe the biggest change, where in the beginning he would wouldn't piss on any of them if they were on fire.
Right.
He sacrifices himself several times actually, but yeah. Yep. So he's a leader, and you look at him and you always think, he's kind of like not exactly the loser, but he would end up being the loser in life because of his attitude and nonconformity to him equals cool, and it's not always about that. But it goes to show that there is maturity behind there, and this kid is a bit of a leader. He has more soul than we give him credit for. You would think that someone like the Emilio Estevez would be the leader because he takes on that defender role early, protector.
Right.
So,
but a protector isn't always necessarily the leader. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, in this case, it works both ways because also he, Judd Nelson's character, he also protects them. When he sacrifices himself, because he realizes, okay, there's no other answer here. I have to do this, otherwise we all get caught. I will just go and
I want to be an airborne ranger. I want to lead a life of danger.
So, but that was a beautiful arc to kind of see it happen. Mm-hmm. Also, I was going to say before, the reason I like that scene so much, where they all drop their truth bombs and pour their hearts out to each other. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of truth about high school there. Especially the thing. It's like everything. It's like you think because we bonded today, and we're friendly here, and we got to know each other, that we can carry this into school and our groups of friends. How are they going to look at us? You think that I even watch it at the end, where Judd Nelson and Molly Ringwald's characters kiss. and she gives him the earring and he puts it in, and it's like you think, oh, maybe there's a chance that, but in reality, would this have happened? Probably
not. Nope.
And that really hit, with me watching that. I was thinking, yeah, the tribes, in high school are such a strong thing.
They're horrible, dude. They are horrible. They're even worse now because of these. They're even worse now because of cell phones, because now they don't have to be at school to bully you. They can do it from the privacy of their cowardly little bedrooms.
And and it's not even that. They don't even have to bully you. They just have to not include you. And and that's really what it's about. And it's like a lot of kids would say, but we're not bullying anyone. We just don't want to include them in our group. This is our group and it's up to us. And it's like, yeah, that's true. But you kind of wish it was different, but it's not.
Yeah.
So that
nothing's changed.
That scene was like a truth bomb, really.
Hardcore.
Yeah, and it made the film several levels better in my eyes, because it's not sugarcoating the high school experience. It's not really saying, oh yeah, but they all went and became great friends, and
exactly.
and the nerd was now cool, and the this and the that, and the jock was now sensitive. Of course they are, but they're still not going to mix.
Well, even when Ali Sheedy's character and Emilio Estevez are outside, she's got she's been
Ali Sheedy or Molly Ringwald?
No, Ali Sheedy.
Oh, yeah. And Emilio Estevez.
And they're outside and they're kind of kissing on each other too. And then she rips the patch off of his Letterman's jacket. But then at the same time, you sit there and you go, well, are they going to be able to connect on Monday? I think my
theory, more of a chance.
Yeah. With them, more of a chance. With Bender and Clarice.
Not so much. Yeah.
Or not Clarice, Claire.
Yeah, but there's a reason. Yeah, Claire and Hannibal Lecter. But with Emilio Estevez and Ali Sheedy, there's a reason, and the reason is because of what he did. The whole bullying thing about the kid, and taping his gluing his butt cheeks together and all that, and how badly he felt about doing that. He, I think, reached a point.
He showed
where it's kind of a breaking point.
Yeah, he showed.
Yeah, but
remorse.
It's also a breaking point. Yeah, knowing I'm not going to become this sort of evil person just to please everyone. I'm not going to do that anymore. So,
and it was more about his dad. It's more about his dad. His dad. Is kind of not directly, but indirectly egging him on to be this piece of shit, and he doesn't want to do it.
To be the alpha male or whatever, but it's he's admitting fully he's not that person,
right?
And he never kind of directly apologizes for that or expresses that he's going to apologize to the actual kid he did it to or anything, but you can see the change there. So for that character to be with the Ali Sheedy character would make a little bit more sense. That he would kind of fade into the less popular group, in high school,
and
just
he'd be
because
okay
he's
with it.
Sick of, and he's sick of the whole popularity. Look at me, I'm a jock, I'm a wrestler, I win tournaments, whatever.
Right.
He'll keep wrestling. It's still his ticket, as he keeps putting it, in the film, into college and all the rest of it. But he could still do that and be a human being. So that was
it is
very,
possible,
very interesting layer
to be an athlete and a human being. You don't have to be a dick completely to be an athlete, or anything else.
The one thing that always was my one, almost not even a criticism, but almost a criticism about the film, is actually the name. The Breakfast Club never made sense to me as this is what we'd call this group, just because they were there for breakfast. There was a whole lot of other stuff there. I just, at the same time, I understand why it was picked, because it's got a cool sound to it. It has a nice ring to it, the Breakfast Club, and it kind of works, but in my mind, it'll always kind of won't. There'll always be this thing. It's like, well, maybe they should have been a bit more creative, found something else. Because he signs off, on the essay, yours truly, the Breakfast Club, and it's like, really, why? Why would Vernon recognize them as that? Even, you know what I mean? It's like, who?
Well, while you were talking, I typed in reason for the Breakfast Club, and
title.
Here's the reason. Here's the title. Film's title comes from the nickname invented by students and staff for detention at New Trier, I think, high school. The school attended by the son of one of John Hughes's friends. Thus, those who were in detention were designated members of the Breakfast Club. So
obscure much.
It
was just in that school. At first, I thought you were going to tell me this was like an American thing. I would have gone, oh, okay, that makes sense.
No,
but it's not. It's just that school. Yeah, it's like a private joke almost. But yeah,
exactly. So
that actually makes my point even more, I think.
That wasn't enough for you.
No, not that it wasn't enough. This is enough to show that I was correct. Yeah, that I was correct. That this is a reference that is never made in the film, and it's a non-existent reference. It's only in some obscure high school somewhere in the US, but nowhere else.
That wasn't something we needed to know. I don't know. To me,
like I said, yeah, it's not even a criticism. It's just something that my brain picked up on. And,
you're like, okay, why the fuck did they call it the Breakfast Club? I don't understand why they did that.
I think it's because it sounds cool.
Yeah, well, kind of, I guess.
Because it does,
Yeah, well, it does. I mean, I don't know what else you would have called this.
I would have called it the Breakfast at Tiffany's Club.
Okay. I think the original title for this was not the Breakfast Club. I think it was Saturday Detention or something like that.
That's weak.
Was the exactly? Can you imagine if that's? I can guarantee that it would not have the legs that it has today if they would have called it.
Oh man, you have to see Saturday Detention. That is awesome.
Yeah.
No.
So, all right. Is there anything else that you think we should attack on this? I don't know. I think we had a good talk on that. What do you think?
I don't know if you can hear. There's a bit of noise coming from outside, but
no, I can't hear anything.
Cool. Yeah, no, it's just, again, it's one of those films. I think it's a must see for anyone who likes, cinema in any way, shape, or form. It's almost anyone I know who has seen it, which is pretty much almost everyone I know, loved it. I don't know many people or any people that I can think of who didn't like it or who think it's not a good film.
Yeah. My youngest daughter watches it probably as much as I do. So
yeah, well, she's lucky to to have a dad who's really into film and who puts that in front of her. I assume a lot of parents don't or didn't. So there would be a lot of people in today's sort of younger generation that haven't seen it.
I was pretty taken back how many people haven't seen it. So
I would definitely encourage them to go and see this. Well, you don't have to go far today. It's on all the on some platforms.
Yep.
But yeah, it's I would say it's my favorite John Hughes film.
It's kind of funny because it's my favorite John Hughes film, but I feel like it's in my top 10 for sure. But I'm a big fan of 16 Candles. I'm a big fan of Pretty in Pink. Um, you know, if you, and it's kind of funny, people don't realize if you run down the list of John Hughes films, you know, stuff like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and uh, people
Ferris
just
Bueller's Day Off.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Oh my God, we're gonna do that one here pretty
Well,
soon.
that one and The Breakfast Club, to me, almost tied as my favorites from him.
Yeah,
And you know, I wouldn't go as far as saying a top 10. It's very tough for me to say about a lot of films, you know, that are in my top 10. For me, if I say it's in the top 100, that is saying a lot. You know, I have seen many thousands of films over the years, and I would say that both The Breakfast Club and Ferris Bueller's Day Off would be in that top 100, probably towards the top 50.
yeah,
Whereas his other films, for me, won't be. But that's not to say I don't like them. I just don't like them as much as a lot of other people.
yeah.
16 Candles and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and Pretty in Pink. I like them. It's just they didn't hit,
Some kind
you
of
know, the
some kind of
same
Wonderful is
chord with
really
me.
good too. I really like that.
Yeah,
That was
another nice
actually
film.
he wrote that. Well, he didn't. John Hughes didn't direct. He didn't direct Pretty in Pink, and he did not direct Some Kind of Wonderful. He did direct Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, but he didn't direct. He wrote the first two Home Alones, but didn't direct them.
Yeah.
So you know,
But you're saying he didn't direct Pretty in Pink?
No, he did not. He did
Okay,
not
I always
direct it.
remember that he has, because for a lot of people that's his film.
No,
I
no,
don't
he
remember
did.
who directed it.
He I I always forget the guy's name.
Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, right. No,
I'd like to see his version.
Howard Deutsch is the one that directed that. He also directed Some
Okay.
Kind of Wonderful. Howard Deutsch is also responsible for the Grumpy Old Men movies. He directed those as well. He's done a lot of stuff.
Stylistically, that makes sense.
So, yeah, and he did The Replacements with Keanu Reeves and Gene Hackman, and yeah, he's done a lot of stuff. Yeah, he did The Great Outdoors.
John Hughes, you're talking about?
No, Howard Deutsch, the guy that directed
Deutsch.
Pretty in Pink. He directed Pretty in Pink and Some Kind of Wonderful. And then
because John Hughes directed only 8 films.
Yeah, yep.
His last one was a big kind of flop. Was Curly Sue.
Yeah, that wasn't.
And before that, he made Uncle Buck with John Candy, which was funny.
Huge.
She's Having a Baby with Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, that was okay. That wasn't great.
Yeah. Well, one that we forgot was Weird Science.
Oh, yeah. How can we forget Weird Science? That was.
But yeah, 16 Candles was his first. It was his directorial debut.
No, actually, Vacation.
Not according to IMDb.
No, he didn't do. Well,
maybe he didn't direct it.
Maybe I think
it says 84,
wrote it.
16 Candles. Yeah, he made both The Breakfast Club and Weird Science in 85. Wow. And then Ferris Bueller in 86, Planes, Trains in 87, She's Having a Baby in 88, Uncle Buck in 89, and Curly Sue in 91. So he did it all in a very, very short span of time. Like in about 7 or 8 years, he made all 8 films.
Yeah, Harold Ramis directed the original Vacation. That's my bad. Sorry. Somebody out there yelling, "You're an ass! You're a dumbass!" It's like, come on, I can't remember everything.
Go argue with with IMDb.
Yeah,
but yeah, he wrote a ton of shit.
Yep.
53 writing credits. Wow. like all the Home Alone films, some of the Beethoven films, the dog ones,
Yep.
Made in Manhattan.
God, that was
Real
horrible.
Big
I hated that
Taylor.
movie. My wife loves that movie,
So
but I can't stand it.
Okay, he wrote the screenplay to Just Visiting, which is actually a remake of a French film. Flubber.
Oh God, he's responsible for that.
Yeah. Also the 101 Dalmatians from '96. He wrote the script, and the remake of Miracle on 34th Street in '94.
That wasn't
Baby's Day
horrible.
Out.
That wasn't
Dennis the
horrible.
Menace. Wow, so many Home Alone versions. But yeah, a lot of the stuff. Oh, he also wrote The Great Outdoors.
Yes, he did. He did
That was
write
a fun
that.
one.
Yeah,
That
I
was a
like that
fun
movie
one.
a lot. I like
Dan
that
Aykroyd,
a lot.
yeah.
So
Dan Aykroyd and John Candy. But yeah, a lot of stuff from that sort of, National Lampoon's European Vacation as well. So,
yeah, he didn't.
Yeah,
he didn't.
he's Mr. Mum.
Yes, he did write that too. I forgot about that. That's that was.
So he was more a writer.
Yeah, he was a writer. He liked to direct. I think the biggest problem that he had was having to go back and forth with the fucking studio execs, and it was easier. I guess one thing, when they got to Some Kind of Wonderful and Pretty in Pink, it was easier for him to kind of stay back and keep the fucking studio executives at bay while Howard Deutsch directed the movie that John Hughes wrote, versus somebody standing in there and the fucking executives, like they are, going, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, nothing about how to make movies, but they're gonna tell you how to make a movie. So which is why I don't give a shit if I ever being part of Hollywood. It's just never. Once I worked in Hollywood, I didn't want anything to do with it.
I never worked in Hollywood, and I never want to. But the thing about John Hughes, I wouldn't say he's one of my favorite directors. He's not my least favorite or anything like that.
Right.
But the style in which he worked was never really my favorite. That's why there are two films of his that I really love, and that's The Breakfast Club and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Mm-hmm. The rest, some I like, some I don't. It's kind of the rest are more hit and miss.
Yeah.
He's, to me, a little bit similar to Cameron Crowe in the way that I see him more as a scriptwriter than a director.
Yeah.
Even though he's made some at least a couple, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 great films. I think it's probably a couple each. With Cameron Crowe having made Singles, and a few others that just escape me at the moment. But yeah, these are the directors that have done good work, but not necessarily up there, with my favorite directors of all time.
Right.
But The Breakfast Club, and probably to a similar extent Ferris Bueller's Day Off, I'll definitely find it difficult to keep them out of my top 50 favorite films.
I'll let you in on a little secret. When I saw Ferris Bueller in the theater, I hated it.
Oh my God, it's such a good film.
I absolutely, that'll be a conversation for another time. But
Do you still hate it, or have you?
Oh God, no. Are you kidding me? I've got the whole opening monologue memorized. There'll be occasions where I'll actually do it when I'm
one of the most quotable films of all time.
I hated it right out of the gate when I went to see it. And I don't know if it was the girl that I went on the date with to see it or what it was. I just remember sitting there and I wanted to leave. I tried.
I was going to say you were making out throughout the whole film.
No, I wasn't. No, I just, I don't know if I was in a bad mood or what the deal was, because I mean, it's one of my favorites now, but I hated it. I didn't want to watch it. I didn't give a shit about it. I left and didn't even think about it again until after it came out on video. And then
Yeah.
I watched it again and went, oh, okay, this ain't so bad.
This is really funny. This is really funny.
It's actually pretty good. So I think it was probably the girl I was with.
Yeah, well, we should actually do an episode about it in the future, because there's a lot of theories about that film that are a little bit, crazy. Definitely one of the most quotable films of all time. There's so many lines in it.
One of the worst performances of my career, and they never doubted it for a second. Besides, how could I be expected to go to school in a day like this? With six Sputnik in the background,
The funniest thing is, the most quotable bit of it is Bueller, Fry, something, DOO, economics. And I do that from time to time. And people just look at me funny because they don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm like, Ferris Bueller. But when I say Ferris Bueller, they go,
oh, okay. All right.
And my other favorite, that sort of more obscure one from this film, is something along the lines, I can't remember the exact quote, but where he says, "Don't worry, I'm a professional." And Ferris goes, "Professional what?
Professional what?" Oh,
the
Cameron.
valet who ends up taking the car, for a joyride.
Cameron was in Egypt's land. Let my Cameron go. Pardon my French, but Cameron is wound up so tight that if you stuck a lump of coal up his ass in 2 weeks, you would have a diamond. All right, enough. Ferris
Bueller is for another episode, but we'll have to do it.
Absolutely.
But Breakfast Club, again, we've done this in other film episodes that we've recorded, so I'll do the out of 10 thing. For me, The Breakfast Club is 9.5 out of 10.
Oh, that's higher than I thought you were going to give it. Mine's 10 out of 10. Mine's 12 out of 10.
I don't have a 10 out of 10. I have 9.7-ish, 9.8 maybe, but I never have 10 out of 10.
No, this is
no film is perfect
for me.
It's such a good film. It's
Jaws. It's
if the thing is, if you would have asked me maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I would have said, a solid 9. The reason I'm saying 9.5 is because, like I said, I watched it a couple of weeks ago, and it has not aged a bit, and that is everything. For this film. It's like it's still as good as it was the first time.
Yep.
I had to bump up the out of 10 thing, because it's like,
there you go.
It's very close to a perfect film.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for this episode of the Straight Shooters. If you guys want to send us
Another one bites the dust.
Another one bites the dust. If you want to send us any suggestions on movies or music you'd like us to talk about, please send it to the email address listed below. Also, make sure you
let us know your thoughts about The Breakfast Club. We'd love to hear what your take on the film is.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it's funny that the experiences people have after having seen the movie. There's been some people that I've talked to, it's like, dude, that movie changed my life. So we'd like to hear your story. So either send us an email, or you can send us comment. What is it they say on JoeBlow.com?
Drop a comment.
Your comment in the comments. So go ahead and send us your comment, and until next time, again, thanks to the Dork Spot, my kid Jaden, for the button. Damn the man, save the empire. Appreciate the button.
Records.
Yeah. We're gonna have to talk about that one too. Have you seen that one?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm probably due for a rewatch.
Yeah. I just got the Blu-ray of it a few weeks ago. So, you know what? One thing I wanted to say when we were talking about the whistling of the bridge over the River Kwai, in the Blu-ray version, in this updated surround sound version, I didn't realize, because I remember I was watching when I got this Blu-ray of it, I was sitting there, I was watching it, and you could hear drumming, like you couldn't hear that in the VHS. And I never, I was never able to hear. There are so many things in the Blu-ray, this remixed audio that you can hear in the background now that you could not hear before. So that's what I chimed in.
And that scene would probably be lost on a lot of today's generation if they watch the film, because I would doubt they would have seen Bridge of River Kwai. So,
Yeah, but honestly, when I saw that scene, I didn't know what the Bridge over River Kwai was. It just I didn't know what it was at that point because I hadn't seen it yet. I hadn't gotten into old school cinema yet. It would be another 6 months from that point that I would start really my journey into the wonders of amazing cinema from the past. So anyway,
I think I started in old school cinema, watching my dad, as much as he liked films, he wasn't exactly a film buff, so he tended to watch his favorites over and over. So I got to see films like, The Magnificent Seven and Bridge over River Kwai and Gods of Neverone and all these older films, a lot of war films, because he liked them. So he we would like re-borrow them on VHS, and we had in the collection, and that kind of thing. So I started there. So by the time I saw The Breakfast Club, I recognized the tune straight away, which made it, a little bit extra for me. But yeah.
All right. Well, once again, that's all there is. There ain't no more. We don't care where you go, but you can't stay here. So thanks again for joining us. We can, especially. Yeah. So thanks again for joining us. On behalf of my awesome friend and partner here, not partner, but you know what I mean. Thanks again for joining us, you guys. We'll see you next time right here on the Straight Shooters Show.
Straight Shooters. See you next time.